What's going on, everyone? Welcome to The Other Club. So recently there has been a ton of new information about Battlefield 1, and I can't wait to share with you my thoughts, analysis, the things I liked, the things I'm concerned about, and all that good stuff. However, today, and more importantly, my favorite holiday, the 4th of July, is right around the corner. I love celebrating the 4th because it is a time to pause and really think about our country and why the principles upon which it was founded were so unique and important. So today we are going to pose the question, what does it mean to be American? At first, what comes to our mind? Sure, to be American, obviously we need to have citizenship, but what else? To be American, must we like baseball, apple pie, freedom, winning? What exactly is it that makes being an American so unique? It is a tough question, really, because as we can see, it is very easy to be and exist legally as an American. We are all being and existing as Americans sitting in our chairs watching this video, but it is much more difficult to know precisely what it means to be American. In my mind, beyond mere citizenship, to be American is to subscribe to a set of ideas about human nature and government. So where can we find this set of ideas laid out for us? While our friend Alexander Hamilton will say 10 times over that these ideas are, quote, not to be rummaged for among old parchments or musty records, and should be intelligible to us through mere observation, let's look at where it is written for us so we don't have to think so hard. Let's now turn to the Declaration of Independence. As we all should know, the Declaration of Independence was the statement adopted by the Second Continental Congress meeting at Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on July 4th, 1776, which announced that the 13 American colonies, then at war with the Kingdom of Great Britain, regarded themselves as 13 newly independent, sovereign states, and no longer under British rule. What we can find in the Declaration is exactly what we are looking for, that set of ideas and defining principles about human nature and government that explain what it means to be American. Let's read the first paragraph together and point out what these important ideas are. The first paragraph reads, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness." What we find then in the Declaration are 4 key ideas. First, all men are created equal insofar as we all possess inherent natural rights. 2, government is instituted to secure these rights. 3, government derives its powers from the consent of the governed. 4, whenever government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right and the duty of the people to alter their government. Now, it is our subscription to these 4 ideas that makes America truly exceptional. How many other countries throughout the history of the world could say that they were built upon a proper understanding of equality, natural rights, limited government, consent of the governed, and free elections? When in adherence to these 4 basic ideas, our nation merits distinction and praise among mankind. However, when we have turned our back on these ideas, our nation has witnessed some of its darkest moments. There are some who say that the Declaration is just some old document written by a bunch of wig-wearing old dudes who we have no connection to today. And because the ideas in the Declaration have not always been lived up to, they are altogether somehow not true. However, in 1858, during the famous Lincoln-Douglas debates, Honest Abe made a powerful point. He reminded the audience that over half of the American population in 1858 were not descendants of those British colonists who declared their independence in 1776. Lincoln noted how half of the Americans in his day came instead from Europe, mostly men of German, Irish, French, and Scandinavian descents. Lincoln said that while these Americans cannot look back through history and trace their connection with the men and women of 1776, they may look back through that old Declaration of Independence and find through those 4 key ideas that they do in fact have a right to claim it as though they were blood of blood, flesh of the men who wrote that declaration. And so they are, says Lincoln. Here Lincoln shows us how the ideas in the Declaration serve as, quote, the electric cord, and that links the hearts of patriotic and liberty-loving men and women together, that will link those patriotic hearts as long as the love of freedom exists in the minds of men throughout the world. So in Lincoln's opinion and in my own, to be American means that you subscribe to the ideas in the Declaration. To be American means that you think all human beings are created equal in their possession of natural rights. To be American means that you believe government is limited to the sole purpose for which it was instituted, which is securing equally our natural rights. To be American means that you believe government derives its powers from the consent of the governed. And to be American means that when government becomes destructive of these ends, you will do your utmost to alter your government to better provide for your future security and happiness. And though these ideas have not always been realized, they have never for a moment stopped being true. In addition, it is central that we understand these 4 key ideas, so if we are getting any of them wrong, we can quickly turn our way of thinking around and get them right. George Mason, author of the Virginia Bill of Rights, reminds us that, quote, no free government or the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any people but by a firm and frequent reoccurrence to fundamental principles. And the reason why I love celebrating the 4th of July is because it is a time for that firm and frequent reoccurrence to these fundamental principles. In my estimation of things, there is great utility in being able to have a commanding knowledge of these 4 principles in the Declaration. When we begin to get back to these basics, we can easily begin to tackle some of the bigger and seemingly more complex problems that we face today. For example, when we look at the principle that all men are created equal in their possession of natural rights, we can begin to have an intelligent conversation about equality and how government should be promoting equality. Should government promote equality in outcome or just equality in opportunity? What are the negative or unintended consequences when we begin to call on government to promote equality of outcome through various methods of welfare and wealth redistribution? In addition, when we begin to look at the principle that says government is instituted to protect natural rights, we can ask an important question. Do we possess our rights by virtue of our nature as human beings, or does government grant us our rights? For example, do we have a fundamental right to free speech prior to the existence of government? And is it the chief purpose of government to protect and secure this right to speech? Or do we possess no rights before the existence of government? And is it the government's job to grant rights instead of securing them? This is a tremendously important question because the way we answer it determines how we understand the social contract and the relationship between the government and the people. Is it a relationship that understands government to be rulers or masters of the people, or servants of the people? Is it a relationship that understands people to be servants and subjects to the government, or rulers and masters of the government? As you can see, the way in which we answer this question has profound consequences. Next, let's look at the principle that says government derives its powers from the consent of the governed. If this is true, why do we allow Congress to delegate so much of its authority to hundreds of federal regulatory agencies like the EPA, FCC, or FDA? These agencies are allowed to conjure up rules and regulations that have the force of law, yet we never elect the people making these rules and regulations that are enforceable upon us. Many aspects of our government and many powers that our government utilizes today are not derived from the consent of the governed, and that is a huge problem. Finally, the last principle of the Declaration says that whenever government becomes destructive of these ends, which are securing equally our natural rights, it is not only our right, but our duty to alter our government to better provide for our future security and happiness. So when we look around today and find evidence of government acting contrary to the ends for which it was instituted to protect, we ought to petition our representatives and become active in voicing our concerns. Not just publicly, but also privately among friends and family. As Ronald Reagan once said, that all great change starts at the dinner table. And what that means is that change comes through changing the way people think. And changing the way people think is done through conversation. If we refine our understanding of these 4 key principles in the Declaration and can apply them to our nation's current challenges, perhaps we can begin to lead the conversation in the right direction. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great time celebrating the 4th of July with your friends and family. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and let me know what you think in the comments below. This is The Other Club, signing out.